Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Outside of Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria, Onitsha, is in Anambra State, southeast of Nigeria, and is arguably the next most important economic hub in the country. A little bit of history will show that Onitsha recovered and flourished from the ruins of a civil conflict, at the end of which its strategic geographic location became a rallying point for people in search of survival. Onitsha has had its own share of tragedies, but very few of them have been on the scale of the inferno on Wednesday this week that consumed multiple human lives and billions of naira worth of property. For a look at that particular incident and how it has become symptomatic of the decaying condition of infrastructure in the southeast of Nigeria, we're now being joined by Dr. Okey Ikechukwu, Executive Director, System Spec Development Academy Leadership and Governance Consultant and Public Affairs Analyst. Welcome to the program, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So I'd like to start off with that tragic, appalling fire that happened in Onitsha with a petrol tanker in 2019, wreaking so much havoc on the public. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, I imagine that you are as outraged as a lot of other people are, but where does the blame lie for this kind of tragedy, and what needs to happen going forward to prevent it?
No, the blame, if there's any, must be spread across several frontiers, and it will be wrong to just tie it to this incident. You look at the planning of the area, that is number one issue. Could it have been differently planned? I think the answer is yes. Then the movement of fuel-carrying vehicles is not an Onitsha problem. It's all over the country. There's no road use directives, when to carry, where, and how. So all of these things together, then you now come to the matter of the crisis of infrastructure in the southeast. Onitsha is very densely populated. It's supposed to be the commercial capital after Lagos, although that is open to argument. But the main issue to note here is that this incident clearly could not have happened but because of a combination of several reasons between infrastructure, population density, and so many other things. Replanning will be one way to go, but that will involve relocation, reclamation of land, the erosions that made the areas in Onitsha. But one thing you may want to note, particularly about the residential parts of Onitsha, a particular building pattern has dominated Onitsha metropolis since, I think, the 70s, where in some areas you find mostly four-story buildings, usually with no parking area around, the presumption being that the people don't own vehicles and won't need to drive. The streets are not as wide as they should be. In such areas, if anything happens, of course, casualty rate will be high. More than the question of whether a tanker fell is also the failure of emergency services. Did so many people have to die if indeed the infrastructures of emergency public administration were in place? I think not. So it's a combination of several factors, some of them local living habits, some of them failure of the federal government in the area of infrastructure, some of them perhaps some aspects of emergency services that could have been provided by the state government.
Absolutely, Doctor.
So it's a mixed grill.
And what's very concerning when it comes to road safety is that one would think or hope that we had more enforced policies around the way in which tankers move on our roads. This is a situation that has happened far too many times. And when it's reported that the tanker said that their brakes failed and that's what led to this entire disaster, you start to wonder where our road safety checks even begin. What do we need to start seeing in terms of the enforcement of policy around road safety? Because this is an accident that cannot happen again, and it has to be prevented now.
Well, I'll separate road safety from vehicle, what you might call it, vehicle, like the condition of vehicles. Only 2-3 weeks ago, I had a session with the Federal Road Safety Corps. The question of policy doesn't arise at all. We have very sound policies for road safety. But you know there's the VIO that inspects vehicles to determine its condition and co. So let's separate the two functions. And going forward, it is not a question of policies, it's a question of compliance, it's a question of keeping to rules. It is possible for those who manage these things to have a meeting with the trailer owners and tanker owners, because now that that thing has happened, somebody has lost a tanker worth millions of naira, and volume of fuel worth millions of naira. It is also what you might call an aspect of it will have to be social and political education about corporate social responsibility. You must take time to fix your vehicle because if anything goes wrong, you're endangering other people's lives. Those who have died in this accident now, some of them, their children may stop school because they're the only providers for the family, among many other things. So there has to be some level of top-down enlightenment. I believe that some of the platforms of power that are mostly ignored in policy implementation, not drafting, is the places where these things happen. Who has ever called the National Union of Road Transport Workers to policy meetings, not to formulate policies, but you see, this is what we've planned to do. This is how it will affect people.
I beg your pardon. I need to interrupt you now. We need to just take a short break, and we'll be right back to hear the rest of your thoughts on this matter. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Dr. Okey Ikechukwu, Executive Director, System Spec Development Academy, Leadership and Governance Consultant, and Public Affairs Analyst. As you were saying, Dr. Ikechukwu, before we had to take that short break.
Yes, I was saying that we need education in that regard, and that's not going to school. Vehicle owners, drivers, associations connected with the line of roadwork transport should be briefed regularly on policy. No, before that, I think there should be specific rules. Nigeria is not the only place you have large vehicular movement. There are countries, even within West Africa, where you have times within which such vehicles should move. If we say, for instance, that heavy-duty vehicles should not move until 11 p.m., it means that if they leave Lagos by 11 p.m., wherever they are by 6 p.m., there's facility for them to park and wait again so that smaller vehicles will go. That would be one way to go about it. Another would be to create a consensus, create a certain level of understanding to minimize the losses. Those who own vehicles don't want their vehicles destroyed. Those whose goods are being hauled don't want it destroyed. And therefore, there has to be some synergy by way of communication that, look, these things have to happen, otherwise we'll be in trouble on all fronts. Thirdly, you recall, some Nigerians may still recall, and I'm sure you will recall that there was a time when heavy-duty transportation occurred mostly by rail, including petroleum products. Now the rail system has disappeared. Part of what has to happen is the restoration of that rail system. Now that's a very, very serious long-term project because of cost and because of time of execution. So in the short term, let there be rules on the heavy-duty vehicular movements. Let those rules be enforced. It's not just a question of making of the rules. And then let there also be a compensation package, because with what has happened in Onitsha now, what we have on record is tragedy. What we are talking about is how many people are outraged. We're not talking about compensation or culpability. If you're talking compensation now, is it the vehicle owner or the federal government whose road has the condition of whose road that led to all sorts of things? Or is it so? There are a lot of issues on the table that cannot be sorted very quickly to determine, because now those who lost their lives and property are going to be the sole losers in this matter, and that's not how you build a society.
Absolutely, Doctor. There might also be the issue of criminal liability if it is found that the trailer was faulty in any way. But as you said about the Onitsha fire, it's not exclusive to Onitsha. It's a national problem. That leads me to ask you about the closure of the Enugu Airport, which also is that's not the first time it's happening. The Abuja Airport was closed. What are the factors, like how you've just taken us through what are the factors behind this latest tragedy? What causes an airport to suddenly be declared a death trap and have to be closed? Why is there not constant maintenance, constant repair? The good news, of course, we all know, the Southeast governors went to visit the president and were able to come away with a promise of a special intervention fund worth 10 billion naira for the rehabilitation of the airport. But why did it come to this in the first case?
No, to begin, let me start from the visit of the governors. It was really a shame that the announcement of an intervention fund came because the governors went to see the president. The closure of an airport is not an accident. And as for reasons, it could be that the tarmac is bad. I mean, the runway. It could be that infrastructure is decaying. So it is not unusual. You can close an airport. But I imagine that in a properly planned governance environment, the closure of an airport becomes part of a plan of rehabilitation, in which case, before you announce the closure, you've already secured the processes that will lead to the reconstruction or rehabilitation you're talking about. Now, this airport was closed almost 2 months now. Apparently, nothing was on the table until the governors went. What does that tell you about public administration in the Federal Republic of Nigeria today? And it's not peculiar to this government. You could close an airport as a gateway to 5 states. And then nothing was being planned. Then the governors went, just like you go to an oracle to offer sacrifice. You went there, killed a ram, a chicken, and some eggs, and repeated incantations. And then the oracle then said, yes, my son, I now grant you your wish. It is not right. That's not how to administer a modern state. Now, you've announced an intervention fund of 10 billion. That announcement after the visit of the governors, is it the result of any economic calculation? If it isn't, again, it is wrong. Now, you now begin to think of the losses associated with the closure of that airport for so long. People have to travel either to Asaba or to Port Harcourt or to Owerri to board a plane, and that's 3 hours on the road, danger to life and property, banging around of their vehicles. And you're talking about an area where all the federal roads, all, have been bad since 1999. And you can take them one after the other. Set out from Enugu, go to Port Harcourt. That entire stretch of federal road, I think nearly 200 kilometers, has been bad for the last 20 years. Sections of it, of course, get repaired, but it's always been a bad road for 20 years. Enugu-Onitsha is the same thing. All the roads that are federal, the one where this accident occurred. And so in terms of transport infrastructure in the Southeast, it's been a disaster all this while, all these 20 years of democracy, even before then. And that's why also you look at it, you see that you also shut down the airport. That limits elite's capacity to move around within the Nigerian Federation. And in the midst of all of this, too, there has been a lot of debate about the Onitsha port, which is supposed to influence commercial activities positively. I've never been a supporter of that project. I still am not, because a port is not what you call a toy you buy for children and they say, oh, see what I've got. It's an economic facility. It's not viable for 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is security. You're not going to have your ship coming all the way through the creeks with the way the South Side has become ungovernable due to militants, and they will allow your containers to go. Then, even if you let that pass, natural factors, there is not enough water that will give you the drought for ship. Oh, you can argue that there are countries where they build it in such a way that water will rise and fall. But the truth of the matter is that water coming down from up north has declined by 68%. And so there's siltation. It is not going to work, but let's assume it's going to work. Right now, the second Onitsha bridge Niger Bridge is at last being worked upon after 20 years of going through and fro. Now, if you look at the structure of that bridge, the Southeast leaders are sitting there and watching and waiting for the bridge to be built so they can operate their port. But the height of the bridge will not allow any seagoing vehicle to enter the port. So as we speak, that port has become history. It's not going to function unless to be an underground port, and that will be the first time in history. So put all of that together, what you see is a region of the country that's severely disadvantaged in every respect, in representation, in appointments in the federal government, in the volume of budgetary allocations, in the state of national infrastructure, on all fronts. And it has the highest hurdles in terms of getting additional institutions. Now, is it that we want to exterminate the Southeast? But of course, in all of this, you must also ask, what is it the Southeast elite are doing? If they can sit down and they are clapping because a bridge is being built, and they're not paying attention to the impact of that on all the possible developmental infrastructure in the area, it tells you about the absence of a cohesive leadership and group survival vision. And that's part of the crisis in the Southeast.
I just want to take you back to what you said about the closure of the Enugu Airport and that no work was done for 2 months until this visit happened. The Minister of Aviation said that the project was not included in the 2019 budget, so no work was done. So this, for me, speaks of a short-sightedness. Because, as you were saying, before you close the airport, there needs to be some kind of plan in place.
I agree with you. And the explanation of the aviation minister, I think, is a scandalous and, if you like, pathetic escape route that's already blocked even before he took it. So anything not in the budget will not be dealt with, even if it's a national emergency. If the National Assembly is bombed out today, you will not start rehabilitation because it's not on the budget. If there's a crisis in the Southeast leading to massive losses, you will not quickly deploy funds because it's not on the budget. The whole point of budgeting is to address needs. Budget is not a trap. As the Bible says that the law is made for man, not the Sabbath is made for man, not man for the Sabbath. We cannot maintain this form of thinking among people who are in public office. Public office is about service delivery. And service is about identifying needs and dealing with them, not creating imaginary hurdles for yourself. If it's not on the budget, does that mean there's no money? If there's no money, have you been borrowing? For what have you been borrowing? Is it not sufficient to make you borrow? That a region of the country which has the worst connection of federal roads and therefore makes road movement very unattractive, also the only means of quick movement that could facilitate the economy of the area is not working. And that's not a national emergency. What's a national emergency? The money that was budgeted for Ruga, within which you had 20 million naira per house made of mud, which was quickly released. It was actually, the contract was already awarded by Ministry of Agriculture. We all saw the papers. Was it on the budget? And you're talking about a couple of billions. So it would have been good if the minister didn't speak. And it tells you, it makes it a little depressing to think of the quality of thinking among individuals and groups that are saddled with the management of the affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is our fatherland. It is a shame. It was not on the budget. So anything not on the budget cannot happen because the budget came down from heaven as one of the commandments. It's an expenditure advice, which you can alter or even throw away if you discover that it can no longer work. Let us suppose that the budget is existing now. Some events come up that make it even necessary to shut down one or two ministries. What will you do? Supposing they decide to shut down the Ministry of Niger Delta and argue that, look, this falls, everything the Niger Delta Ministry is about to do falls within the purview of the existing ministries, and therefore increase their budgetary allocation and let them get their work done. But you created a new ministry. So can't you do that? So the aviation minister has not helped matters at all by his excuse, you know.
So, Doctor, how do you see this situation in the long run? Do you feel like this is a helpless situation towards the Southeast, or what is economic prosperity? Because it's of no doubt that there is systemic oppression towards the Southeast, but what is that roadmap for economic prosperity? We do know the problems that exist. And then I also wanted to bring you up on the Bakassi seaport, deepwater seaport that's being developed for $2 billion. I wanted to ask you what you think about that project and whether you think that's a good investment coming in, which of course has a lot of controversy around it right now.
Well, what I will look at is the economics of port development. When you build a port, a local economy emerges. But there must be optimal conditions for a port. You have to have enough draught of water. You have to have security, among other facilities. Now, let's look at the economics of importation. Everything comes in through Lagos. And my name is Mustafa. I'm coming from Kano or Kauranamoda to buy certain products which I can only get in the south. I finish procurement, I begin to transport it to Lagos. I'm from Lagos to Kano or Kauranamoda. Now that's a couple of days journey by trailer, maybe 4 or 5 days. But in addition, actually, I spend more. I spend more on transport. I spend more on the cost of the goods, and I face a greater security risk. Now you get the port in Warri working, which is actually badging the sea. Instead of going all the way to Lagos, I stop over in Benin, go to Warri, pick my goods. Now, I spend less on transport, I spend less on the cost of the goods. Or I go through Makurdi and take a Ebonyi State, go through part of the Southeast and Ekotekpene Road, go to Bakassi or go to Port Harcourt Port. All of them functional. you see that my profit, my expendable income will increase because I'm spending less on the goods I'm buying. I will also sell it at a slightly lower rate. And then revenues will go to all these ports across the country, and you're talking about development. So the controversy around the Bakassi port, yes, but you must also understand that part of it is the political economy of who benefits from what. If you develop all these ports, the first thing that will happen is that the trailer gridlock around the wharf will disappear because those trailers will be carrying goods from other parts of the country. The other thing that will happen is that importers and exporters will also open offices all over.
I'm so sorry, we have run out of time on this conversation, but thank you for your insight. This was a great chat. Enjoy the rest of your day.